But before I do that, I want to tell a little story about a member. Did work with me for a year, for 12 months. He started with $25,000 or something like that. And we were doing the 7DT strategy and bread and butter. He grew that account from 25 to 35,000. So that's a really good return based on that capital amount. Okay. If we kind of did the math and you said 10,000 divided by 25,000, that is 40% return on your capital. That's not bad at all. And I want to talk about the MES today. And the reason I want to talk about the MES is that you have three type of margining systems when you're trading in these markets that are available to retail traders. You have what is a traditional type of margining, which is called regular T or regulation T margin. And that's what everyone gets if they sign up for a margin account. Right? And so margin can be a little misleading when you are talking about options, but it's kind of umbrellaed or put under that umbrella of margin. But when you're trading options, you're not necessarily using margin, and the super majority of the time, if not all the time, you're not using margin. But you do need to get a margin account to be able to trade options. And what that regulatory margin means is that they're going to give you up to 50% or 100% of what you have in your account is going to be your buying power for stocks. And when you sell an option, let's say a naked option, an uncovered option, they're most of the time they're not going to require you to put up the max loss. They're going to give you a fraction. Usually it's 20 to 30% or something like that that they will require you to put up for that trade. So for example, if we're going with this MES here, and I just say, I know it's 6 days here, but I just say I sold this here. Well, you can see that the max loss is then a little over 31,000, but the buying power they require me to put up to sell that naked put here just over $1,700. That's the collateral I have to put up. That is like how regular T margin works. What I'm showing you right now is a different type of margin called span margin. And span margin is what I call the original portfolio margin, because the margining or the collateral you have to put up for each trade that you put on is based on your previous trades that you have on. It's based on your portfolio. A lot of times with span margin that everyone can get if they have a futures account, right? Everyone can get it. You don't have to have a certain account size or anything such as that. You can get it, but it's the original portfolio margin. So sometime when you're using it, they'll give you buying power, give you additional buying power because of what you're putting on. So if you have a lot of bullish stuff on and then you decide you're going to put something on that's bearish, well, they're going to increase your overall buying power because of that fact. If you have a lot of bullish stuff on and you continue to put bullish stuff on, well, it's going to most likely ask for more buying power because you're putting on more directional risk in that scenario. So the third type of margining system is called portfolio margin. That's why I was saying the span margin is the original portfolio margin. Portfolio margin is a newer type of margining system that they came out with that allows you to trade with bigger leverage, but they have differentiated it from a regular margin account by requiring you to have a certain account size to be able to qualify for it. So on Tasty Trade, you need 175,000 to qualify for the portfolio margin, and you have to maintain 150,000. No tests required, anything like that. It's all about the dollar amount in your account. On Thinkorswim, they require you to have at least 125,000 to initiate portfolio margin and then maintain 100,000. But you also have to take a test, right? And so you have to pass that test to be able to get portfolio margin from them. Portfolio margin is just like the name. Everything you put on is based on your portfolio. So it's not going to, if you put on a spread, it's not going to require you to have your max loss like regular T margin would, because based on the spread, it's going to be based on whatever else you have in that portfolio. It's called portfolio margin. So if you're putting on something once again that's bullish and you offsetting stuff in your portfolio that's bearish, then it's going to give you positive buying power or require very little buying power. With those three different margining systems in place, I absolutely love the span margin that you can get when you're trading options on futures or futures contracts themselves, because everyone could qualify for it. And I actually think it's better than portfolio margin because it's the original, once again, original portfolio margin. So bringing it all back home here, if you're doing this on the MES, you can get amazing leverage with very little risk if you are using it for a collar strategy. right? Obviously, if you're doing a naked put or a cash secured put here, this is going to require a lot of money if we talk about cash secured put, because a cash secured put will require this amount. But if you use the collar strategy, one of those safeguard strategies, one of the 4 safeguard strategies, if you use the collar, it's going to make this significantly beneficial to all size accounts. Or maybe I shouldn't say all, but because when your account is really big, you should be doing it in the ES. But if your account is 100,000 and less, the MES can be a good alternative. Not that you can't use the ES or bigger products, but you can definitely still use the MES. And so let me explain how this margin works here. But before I do that, I want to tell a little story about a member. He did work with me for a year, for 12 months. We started about like $25,000 or something like that. And we were doing the 7DT strategy and bread and butter. He grew that account to, let's say, like from 25 to 35,000. That's a really good return based on that capital amount. If we kind of did the math and you said 10,000 divided by 25,000, that is 40% return on your capital. That's not bad at all. Liberation Day came around. He was starting to learn about collars using the MES, and he was new to it. And so he let the put side expire that day, on that Wednesday of Liberation Day. President Trump came out that Wednesday night. And so it dropped a ton, a few positions on. So he lost all his gains and plus some. I think his count went down to like 20,000 or something. It was a really ridiculous drop because he let those puts expire. What happened is that he couldn't do certain trades anymore with the SPX or the ES, because he was doing it at night with the ES, kind of the 7DT strategy, because he had an IRA account. And that IRA account would not allow him to trade the ES, the big ES, with an account less than 25K. So we had to figure out, how do we get this money back, but we can't do the primary strategy that gave you, the 40% gain. So we decided we were going to do the collar strategy. He was going to make sure he never let that put expire like that again. So as of about 2-3 weeks ago, he sent me his account status. He's back to 35,000, and he only did the MES collar strategy since that huge drop in April. I'm pointing this out because this can be a really awesome moneymaker. And if you do the collar strategy correctly, you should never have a drop that big for that size account. But if you did, you shouldn't. But if you did, you can get it back. And you can get it back fairly quickly. I mean, quick is relative, but I would say, 4 months is not a bad to get your monies back. Just consistently, he was consistently doing a weekly MES trade. And so the trade looks something like this. Let's do 7 days so it can be clear, because we got something on 9. What I normally would say is that you have to have your assumption over the time frame. It's one of the first things you should think about. So once you set it up, before you kind of put your put and call where you want to put it at for the collar strategy, you have to know your assumption. So if your assumption is bullish, then obviously you're going to put that call in a place that you can get some appreciation. If your assumption is bearish, you're going to put that put side in a place that allows you to be okay with the type of loss that you can possibly have over the time frame that you're doing it. So let's say that I was a little neutral here, that I really didn't know if it was going to go up a lot or down, but I might be leaning a little bullish. So let's just say I decided I was going to go to this 39.40 delta here. And so what I normally do with the MES, because it's not going to give you all the numbers, your max loss and all of that kind of stuff from over here. It's not going to do that. You have to know the denominator. You have to know that you have to do the math yourself. But it's worth doing, because look at this. Right now, if we do this covered call, this is basically a covered call using the micro futures contract. This is like having the shares. It's basically a covered call, and it's requiring $6,300 to do it. So not bad. It's still way better than the SPY, but I just say it's $2,300 here. I'm going to take this number that I'm selling the call at. I'm going to minus 10 from it. Just easy math, you guys. Minus 10 from that, it's going to be 18. That's where I'm going to buy my put at, so I can collect at least $50. So if I go down here and I buy my put, this is for some reason jumped up to an 30, but you get my point. So I'm getting the $50 here. I'm a little bullish, getting the $50 here. And so now I have to figure out the math. But before we do that, I want you to look at this buying power now. So we went from $2,300 to $500, as you can see here, just over $500, because we collared this off using the MES. The MES is 10 times smaller than the ES. What that means is that instead of it being $50 a point, it's $5 a point. So for you to do the math, to be able to determine how much we can make to the upside, you take this number and you subtract this number from it. So the last price from it. So if I take the 64.65 and I minus 64.38, that's going to give me 27 points to the upside. And so what I would do is take that 27 and I times it by 5. That's going to give me 135. And then I'm going to add that 50 to it because that's the credit that I'm receiving. So that means to the upside, I can make about $185 to the upside. Now, the put is this right here, the 63.50. So I'm going to take the 63.50 and then once again, I'm going to subtract that from this number here. So if I take this 63.50 and I subtract that from the 64.38, that's what we were going at initially. That's going to be 88. So what is that? 88 times the 5. That's going to equal 440 minus the 50 in credit. So the most we can lose over the next week is 390. 185, the most we can make, and the most we can lose is 390. And the buying power required is 534. And this is just for one contract. Right? So if you did 3 contracts or 5 contracts, you just times that, right? You just multiply that. But the beautiful part is this buying power. So I can do 2 contracts, and that's $1,000 to say $1,100, just under $1,200 for this account. And it should be the same. If you had a $5,000 account, you can set yourself up to make that. I'm just using this as an example. The 185 times 2, that's $370 in a week off a $5,000 account, perhaps, right? That's really awesome, ridiculous percentage of return on your capital, and you're capping your downside. Yeah, your downside is going to be double what we said, whatever it was, 390, but that would be the end of your downside. So 390 times 2 is the 780. So if you believe, like I do, that these markets are going to go up over time, because they have 100% of the time over the history of the S&P 500, this can be a powerful trade for you, even with a small account as 5K. I wish I was preaching this years ago, but I've grown as well. I've had to come to figure out how to keep members from, ever blowing up their account. And so you guys have heard me say a number of times recently that our mission is to eliminate failure when learning to trade. So this is how we're doing it. Does all those other trades we do here at Dorian Trader, are they good? And should you learn them? Maybe, right? Maybe you should learn them. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe this is the only thing you should learn. But you're not going to blow up your account doing this one. And those other trades can be very attractive, but you want to grow up until you get to that point.